Good morning, class. Today we are going to be working on our Discovery Through Water lesson. So today we're going to be working on a science quest to help my friend in the laboratory. So I have a note from my friend Dr. Q, and I'm going to read it to y'all. Hello, Miss Kayla's class. I am in need of help. I'm trying to figure out which of these items will sink or float. We have a key, a crayon, scissors, a coin, a fork, a block, a leaf, a tennis ball, a bottle cap, and a sponge. We will need to look at the object's physical attributes in order to figure out which ones will sink and which ones will float. I have given Miss Kayla all the materials that you will need in order to complete the task. Are you up for the challenge? Sincerely, Dr. Q. Okay, class, are y'all ready and excited about the challenge? Yeah? Okay, great. So today, the object of today's lesson is that we are going to be able to identify which objects will be able to sink and which objects will be able to float depending on their physical attributes. And specifically today, we'll be talking about the physical attribute of weight. So we know that a cup, we can tell that it's blue. That's a physical attribute. And if we hold it, it's kind of heavy, isn't it? And then what do we know about paper? Well, we can see that it's white and it's kind of tiny, but it's not very heavy. It's very light in weight. So we already know what Dr. Q wants of us, so let's see what else. So the definition of sink means that the object goes all the way to the bottom when it's submerged in water. And what it means to float is that when something floats, it stays on top of the water. And a physical attribute, like we talked about weight, is by definition a physical and generally measurable feature of a substance, such as weight, the shape of it, and even the color. So we can see that this cup is blue. So now I'm going to move on to the teacher modeling. So I have my tub of water, just like all of you have your tubs of water at your stations. But right now we're going to look at the objects that we'll be investigating in our discovery lesson. We have a tennis ball, some scissors, a coin, a bottle cap, a fork, a leaf, a crayon, a key, a sponge, and a block. So those are what we are going to be looking at today. And I'm going to demonstrate how I want you to do the activity right now, but I'm going to be using my cup and our piece of paper so that y'all can see what I expect from y'all. So, I want y'all to pass around that cup. It's kind of heavy, isn't it? Now, what else is it? Do you think it weighs more or less than the paper? Y'all can pass that around too. It weighs more, doesn't it? So I want you to give me a thumbs up if you think that the cup is going to float, or a thumbs down if you think the cup's going to sink. Thumbs down. You think it's going to sink? Well, let's see. Oh, yep, it did sink. The cup sank all the way to the bottom, correct? Now, do we think the paper is going to float or sink? Give me a thumbs up if you think it's going to float, or a thumbs down if you think it's going to sink. Thumbs down, you think it's going to sink? Let's see. Nope. It was a thumbs up. It's floating on the water. It's right on top. So that's what I'm going to ask y'all to do today. Yep. Okay, and now I'm going to hand out our prediction sheet. So I'm going to hand out one to each of y'all. Here you go. Okay. So everyone has a prediction sheet now. So I want y'all to circle the objects that you think will float. And I want you to put an X on the objects that you think will sink. Okay, but before we do that, I'm going to get you in groups of 3. So you 3 will be together. You 3, you 3, you 3, and then Joyce, you can go with that group, and Jordan, you can go with Miss Ashley, and so she can help you. Okay. So, y'all have just a couple more minutes to work on that activity to tell me which ones you think will sink and which ones you think will float. Let's get our T-chart ready. Okay, guys. So I'm going to ask each one of y'all's groups to tell me one thing that will sink and one thing that you think will float. Okay, group 1. So y'all think that the key will float. And what do you think will sink? The fork. Okay. Group 2. So y'all think the scissors will sink and the ball will float. Group 3. You think the crayon will float and the block will sink. Group 4. Y'all think the bottle cap will float. And the coin will sink. And the last group, y'all think that the sponge will float. And the leaf will sink. Okay. Well, we're going to put that to the test. Okay. So now I want all of you to take turns placing the objects into the water. We only place one object in the water at a time so that we can get accurate data. Okay, so I want y'all all to do that right now. And this part of the investigation should take about 20 minutes. The prediction part that we just did takes about 10 minutes. And then, okay, so after you guys get done testing each of the things out, each of the objects out, we are going to work on our sink or float assessment. I'm going to go ahead and pass this out. So on here, as y'all are doing your investigation, you're going to be circling the objects that you think is going to float, and we are going to cross out the objects that sink during our activity. So let's see. And during this time, the modification that is being made for the IEP student is that they are being paired up with Miss Ashley, who's the paraprofessional teacher, so that the student can have one-on-one instruction. And for the gifted student, they will have be asked to use their critical thinking skills in order to orally determine what physical attributes are a part of the object's ability to float or sink. And I'm going to go tell that student that right now. Okay. So I want you to be able to tell me which physical attributes will be used to determine what if an object floats or sinks. I want you to talk that with in your group too. So an example of that would be that the weight of the block has a part that it floats, or the color of the tennis ball does not have an effect on the reason that it could float. So at the end of my lesson, after all the students finish, we are going to go over which objects sink or float. And I'm going to get the answer key real quick. Okay, guys. So does a tennis ball sink or float? It floats. Good job. Does a crayon sink or float? It sinks. Good job. Does a sponge sink or float? It floats. So we're going to circle that one. What about a fork? Does it sink or float? It sinks. What about the coin? Did it sink or float? It sinks. What about the block? It floats. The leaf? It floats. The key? It sank. What about the bottle cap? Did it sink or float? It float. Scissors? It sank. Good job. Y'all did a great job. Okay, so let's talk about the physical attribute that allowed these objects to either sink or float. What was it? Good job. It was the weight of the object. If the object weighed less than the water that was in the tub, it would float. But if it weighed more than the water in the tub, it would sink. Good job. So I'm sure Dr. Q is all very proud of y'all for helping her do her experiment. Thank you so much for helping my friend Dr. Q, you guys, figure out which objects would sink or float. Today, we learned that an object's physical attributes, like the weight, affected whether the object would sink or float. We found out that the sponge, the block, the bottle cap, the leaf, and the ball all floated. And we learned that the fork, the scissors, the coin, the crayon, and the key sank, didn't we? Yeah, because they sank because they weigh more than the water. They're more dense, and the ones that floated were less dense than the water, so they floated. Good job. So let's all repeat the learning objective together. I can tell whether an object will sink or float by looking at the physical attributes. Were y'all surprised by anything we found out? Y'all were surprised that the key sank? Yeah. And the crayon sank? Mm-hmm. Were you surprised that the leaf floated? Mm-hmm. Or even the block floated. I was surprised by that one too. Thank you.